Hello there. Now, today's lecture, or I could say subject, is about meeting Neville Goddard. Now, if you're a student of his material, you already know that he passed away a few decades ago. So, sadly, we're physically unable to communicate with him. But as he so beautifully stated, there is a realm of imagination through which all things are possible. And that is today what I wanted to talk about, my experience with meeting him in that realm. Because this happened to me, and after it did, all of his lectures started to make a whole lot more sense to me, to the point that I'm able to actually make the claim, yes, it works, and I also talk about it in my own ways, because these revelations that he talked about are occurring in my own life in their own little ways. It's very strange indeed, because waking up in the inner world of imagination is quite something else. But I'm also of the opinion that lucid dreaming is a sort of hint to that process. So if you have experience with lucid dreaming, well, that is how you could actually also meet him if you wanted to do so. So what happened to me? Well, I was standing on top of a mountain in this vision, and there I saw this light, this shining being, exactly as he described himself that he would be from a spiritual perspective. I saw this shining being and I asked the being, "Are you the God of this universe?" And then he turned to me and I heard his voice distinctly, and I knew it was Neville himself, and he told me, "He who sees me is God himself." That was the end of that vision. It was the only thing that actually occurred there. So you might wonder, well, or might be a bit disappointed there, whether I didn't have a full, long conversation with him, because I didn't really need it. That was one of the most amazing things that occurred to me, because it occurred in vision. It occurred in another dimension of my own being. So the statement is true that he made. You can meet people that are gone when you go into the imagination, when you detach from this world. You can actually do that. But this vision actually went on in a different place altogether. So I wasn't with him anymore at that point. That vanished. But then I entered another vision, and then again I was on top of a mountain, and there I saw a rock floating in the air. It wasn't a giant rock, it was like a tiny rock, you could say. I can't really give you the measurements, but on it I heard a voice tell me, "Write your desires, and on the other side of this rock that you cannot see, I will inspire the ways to make it so on earth." Now that is pretty significant, because a rock is symbolism for consciousness in a way, right? That is what Neville talked about as well. So this is another vision where I was clearly conscious of the fact that I was communicating with what other people would call God. But I don't really use the term God personally. I like to use the term the universal consciousness, or the consciousness of the universe itself. Because sadly there's still a lot of taboo around this term God, or whatever people want to call it, through religion, which I gotta give him props for doing so. But I am inclined to agree, yes, all of these visions are pretty religious. So I'm curious whether there are other students out there of his material that actually had some very interesting visions going on in their own lives, and if so, I would love to hear about it in the comment section below, because this is something that I'm dedicating my time to as well through this YouTube channel, talking about the power of imagination and how I'm applying it, because it is true. You can go to the end and then you work backwards. So you go look at your own visions, and you can hear me talk about this in my own lectures actually in more depth, because I just wanted to briefly mention this experience of mine to see and find others who had similar visions going on in their own minds, because people should study their own minds and their power of their own imagination. But it is a hard teaching at first. Not everyone is going to grasp it instantly, and secondly, it's a shocking fact still that the majority of people don't study this at all. They don't really consider the power of their own consciousness and the power of their own awareness and their own imagination. So we can't really turn to our friends or family most of the time to ask them, "What do you think about this?" Because they're going to look at you like you're going nuts. Like they can't grasp it most of the time. That's so sad. But we do need to study it to save our own selves, to set ourselves free. That is the reality of it all. To set ourselves free from the attachment we have to this realm called Earth, so we can actually unleash our imagination on a much greater scale and start manifesting not just on Earth what we want, but also in the divine realms of imagination, because that is what is happening to me. I realize this life really is like a playground, a mirror of my own imagination, everything that I contemplate in my imagination sooner or later starts to be expressed into this dimension of time and space. If that is something you want to work with, maybe you've been studying his material but you don't quite understand it, well, I'm gonna make these breakdown videos concerning his lectures and give my interpretation of his words, so you hopefully have a better understanding of what he meant. And you can actually study it through me as well, so you have a person who actually talks to you back in this physical realm concerning what he was talking about, so you don't have to try and guess everything or be confused about it as much. Anyways, that was just my vision. I know it wasn't really in depth. I might write more about these visions that are occurring in my mind, but I'm usually inclined to put them in a book and stuff like that, so people can read them for themselves. But depending on the response over time I get to this video, I would consider writing more of my visions out if people really want to hear about them, because they are out of this world. They are quite something else. And again, I'm kind of like, I know Neville had the same at first, being a bit reluctant to speak about this because it's so strange and unusual to the great majority of people. So it's something I have to kind of develop for myself, this you could say confidence in just speaking these words, speaking the truth of what is happening, regardless of whether the whole world thinks I'm going completely insane. But I know and I believe in his message because I've seen it for myself, what is happening in my own mind. And this stuff is actually the truth that he was talking about. So let me know what your experiences are with his material, because I'm very looking forward to that. Anyways, my name is Neville Goddard, and thank you for checking out this video.